Dr. Curtis, thank you for the update and for your recommendations. And to follow up on observation that you made about the Republican kind of intellectual infrastructure and its noteworthy status, you had also indicated a need to create a similar democratic intellectual infrastructure, more think tanks, if you will. In your view, if you were to provide, I guess, an anecdotal rating, a quantification, would you say on a scale of 100 that the Republicans score 85 as far as infrastructure think tanks, and where would the Democrats be in that comparison?
Well, I'd be reluctant to give a score, but I would praise the conservatives for their long-run strategy. And this has been 3 decades in the making, 3 decades plus in the making, and it's well financed. And it did create a lot of think tanks. I'm not sure how much thinking goes on in those think tanks. They're very effective, though, in getting the word out. The Heritage Foundation, for example, is a block from the White House, and it immediately will get a press release out the next day on any issue, and it immediately will have a list of people who are available to talk on Fox the next day. So the apparatus of communicating and propagandizing is well established. They're I would say conservative and progressive rather than Republican and Democrat is pretty close overlap. The progressive think tanks are not many yet. There are a lot of think tanks that are sort of wishy-washy traditional ones, in my view, that aren't on the cutting edge. And that's why I mentioned new think tanks like Demos and the New America Foundation, which really, I think, have a sense of where we need to go in terms of a long-term movement rather than in just saying, okay, our think tank is composed of people who came back from the last administration, and they'll write their books and give a few speeches, and that'll be it. We need to go far beyond. And some of these new think tanks, for example, understand what I talked about in terms of not only solid ideas, but then getting those ideas out through local grassroots people who are trained in the media, so that you don't have a top-down process where the think tanks tell you, like the Delphic Oracle, what to do, but you have a bubble-up process from the community. So there are probably equal numbers of conservative and progressive think tanks now. The thinking that goes on is questionable, and many of them, the conservative ones, are way ahead in terms of the public relations and communications aspect. And the future is open, including the future of the Internet. And whether the blogosphere can be used as a progressive force still remains to be seen, but as I suggested, it has a lot of potential to serve the kind of priorities of the Kerner Commission and the Obama administration, just like talk radio served the priorities of conservatives in the 1980s.
Hi, my name is Peggy Cella. I work for a federally qualified community health center on the near west side of Cleveland. My concern, I understand that we have federal government, and that federal government is coming up with lots of money to try and help change the mess that we're in. I understand that we have state government, and I understand that I'm almost convinced that much of that money, if it comes to the state, will not wind up where it was meant to be. So I'm much more concerned about our local governments. This is a national problem, but it plays out on local levels. And I know that there have been many, many more African American local governmental elected officials, and I know that that they work very hard. But I think we need to be the think tank. I'm not an elected official, but the elected officials need to, I believe, coordinate with local organizations, local organizations, and I think that we need to become our own think tanks about how to solve some of these problems on a local level and how to garner funds from other sources besides the people we can't depend on. What do you think of that?
Well, I agree. The president I worked for, Jimmy Carter, was not considered that successful as a president. I think he was the best ex-president ever. But he did say that the job of being a mayor is harder than the job of being a president. And I agree with that. And I think Policy Bridge is a good example of local problem solving, or statewide problem solving, maybe, if you expand. And I think that mayors need to work in concert with nonprofit leaders. And in some cities that happens. In some cities there's a lot of stress and tension. But our strategy, the kind of strategy we're promoting, is, as I suggested just a couple seconds ago, it's a bubble-up process. So the more that we can empower, and I'm using this in, I think, a good sense, nonprofits, the more we can fund them, the more we can build the capacity of nonprofits, their board structure, their financial management ability, their ability to raise money, the stronger they'll be in their local neighborhoods. And coalitions of such nonprofits can work with the mayor if the mayor is farsighted enough to understand that the process has to be bubble up from the neighborhoods.
Welcome to Cleveland, Dr. Curtis.
Thank you.
My name is George Edwards, and I'm the founder and president of the Black Trades Council of Ohio. I have a three-part question for you. One, I'm going to go back in history like you did, whereas African Americans picked the cotton and the tobacco and helped create Wall Street and got unearned income, number one. Number two, in 1869, unions came to America and put those African American masons and carpenters and plumbers out of business and did not allow them to work. Today, in 2009, in the building and construction trades, 0.5% of African Americans are in the building and construction trades. And I'm looking at the part of the state of Ohio's part of a stimulus package where a great majority of the dollars, what the young lady was saying earlier, are going to be in construction in reference to the roads and the building of the infrastructure, whereas if 0.5% African Americans are not in the unions, what can we really expect from the state of Ohio and that part of the stimulus package that will trickle down to those individuals who are left out and excluded, and want to rise up, want to feed their families, and want to be productive? What is your assessment in reference to that, please?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm advocating for stronger unions because of the wage inequality that has been generated over the past 40 years. But you're saying it's not just the government that's at problem, it's the unions. And I don't see myself as an expert in unions, but I do know that the kind of grassroots long-term movement that I'm talking about, that says we need to go to a better place, has to include lobbying and advocacy by African American nonprofit organizations